are created by myself, which is evident of itself.
Okay. Do you know that?
I know what I can imagine, like you said. So therefore,
Okay, so why don't you actually speak what you really mean instead of redefining knowledge? So you imagine it.
imagine it, but I can
Yeah.
say, okay, so let me try to, I'm trying to speak your terms. I know you guys are
No, they're
very
not
learned.
my terms. This is how the word knowledge is generally used in
But
Western
the word
civilization.
knowledge
In
itself is
Western
also
in Western
okay.
civilization, when people say "I know what time it is," they don't just sit there and say "I imagine," or if they say "I know Donald Trump is the president," they just don't imagine something. But you see,
Okay.
when you use the word "know," you mean imagine. So if we were following truth in advertising, what you should say is "I imagine this," "I imagine that."
But if someone knows Donald Trump is president, you would argue they're imagining
How
it.
are you using the word "know"? By your definition?
Well, you're the one saying to me that I
Sir, I
imagine
asked
it.
you a question. You see, I have a nasty habit. I'm a dog with a bone. When I
That's
ask
good.
a simple, fair, and circumspect question, and somebody completely fast talks
Mhm.
and is verbose and evades the question, I repeat the question.
No, repeat the question. I don't mean to do that. I'm trying to
Yeah. So when you
process.
make any stipulations, you're just saying you imagine it. So what? So what if you imagine things?
Okay, so how do I satisfy your definition of knowledge?
It's not my
That's,
definition of knowledge.
are,
It's the
are,
widespread use of knowledge in Western-speaking English.
okay, but all of those were created by minds.
I'm going. I'm going by your definition, which is you
Okay.
imagine something.
All right. So let me do this then, because I think that knowledge is something that's self-evident, correct? I think that's what knowledge should be.
That's you imagine that.
I imagine that definition.
Yeah. Okay.
That's what you say.
So what if you imagine it?
No, but I'm saying, hold on, my dog's barking. I'm saying that, hold on, my dog's barking. My wife's texting me. All right. So you're saying that my wife, I
Why
imagine,
should anybody care about anything that any imagination that you verbalize?
well, I think the word imagination here is being used not properly because
Imagination, it means an idea that is formed in an idea that is just simply formed in the mind
right.
that doesn't have a justificatory path.
Okay, so now the definition that you have been taught by Western society has also been what created by who? People with minds who also quote unquote imagined this concept of knowledge itself. Is it not the case?
Are you asserting that?
I am asserting it because
So you imagine it.
imagine it. I guess we all imagine everything.
Well,
So
do
even
you imagine that too?
yeah, I guess so because
So
everyone's
all you're simply verbalizing is what you imagine.
yeah, and so had the people who
Because
told you what knowledge is.
that's your definition of knowledge. So when you make truth claims and knowledge claims, all you're just simply verbalizing is what you imagine.
Okay, but I'm also saying the people who you believe and agree with the knowledge definition that you think I'm disagreeing with are also doing the same thing. So in other
Okay,
words, we're all imagining.
is that a knowledge claim?
It has to be.
Good. So you imagine it.
Okay. I don't know what you're trying to do.
No, I'm
I'm
not trying to
actually
do anything.
I'm actually very
I'm
lost.
going by your definition. Unless, of course, you want to
But
equivocate. Are you equivocating, sir?
I'm saying that my
I asked
definition,
you a question. Are you equivocating on the word knowledge?
I honestly don't even know how you mean that. Max, stop
Equivocate
barking.
means that you're changing the meaning of a word. Now, when you use the word knowledge, you have conceded here to us all that you define you knowing something is that you imagine it. So you keep on making more knowledge statements. Knowledge statements. Is that correct?
Yes, but so does
Good.
your
Then,
position.
according to you, then all you're just simply stating is ideas that you imagine.
Yes, and I'm saying that
Good.
also
Why
for
should
you.
I care about any imagination that you verbalize?
And why should I care about yours also? That's what I'm saying.
I haven't made any knowledge claims to you.
But you've claimed that
Did you
my
hear? Did you hear me make knowledge claims?
I don't, I mean, you're saying, are you not saying my knowledge claims are not the traditional Western
I'm
view?
simply repeating what you have already told me.
Okay. So what is your,
Are you afraid to stand on your definitions?
no, I'm trying to learn from you because I see what you're trying to do here and I
No, I'm not.
appreciate it.
I'm not. I haven't advanced my worldview to you, sir. I'm just simply asking you to see if
Okay.
your worldview is coherent. So far,
Well,
it isn't.
all right. So, okay. So my worldview is not coherent because you say that I imagine this concepts,
No.
which,
You said that you imagine everything. Knowledge for you is what you imagine. You said that. I didn't.
okay. Well, I don't think the word imagine is being used properly here.
Okay. No, you used it, sir.
All right. I don't want to use it. I want to use perceive.
Okay. Well, what do you mean by you mean sense perception?
Hold on, my wife's calling me. Hold on, I'll be right back. All right, I'm not backing out of
Yeah,
this.
you imagine your wife is calling you.
My wife is not calling me. It's fake. I'll be right back. Hold on. I'll be right back, guys.
Yeah, this guy's a master of double talk. What an embarrassment.
Absolutely.
Well, I don't know if he's a master. I mean,
So,
I imagine he's not a master.
Can you give an example of his double talk?
Hey, Vsauce here.
I didn't notice
you
any
what?
double talk.
Well, I guess we can start like
Yes.
a discussion here.
Oh, that was a
Space
terrible
was playing.
Vsauce impression. You should be ashamed of yourself.
Who?
The guy's name was Player TTC.
That's a bad guy.
Player, are you a bad guy?
Oh, that guy.
What did I do? I didn't-
He's a young teen guy. Young teen bad guy.
Oh, have you met Danny?
No, I've been mature actually. I've been quiet during discussions, and since no one's talking, I'm trying to.
Trying to what?
Trying to meme.
Try to start a conversation.
Well, we already have a conversation going on. Did you not hear it?
No, I just joined a few seconds ago.
Okay, well, maybe you should join a little quieter.
right.
Bricks.
Blue meaning.
Yeah, we're just taking a little break here. Everybody's going to catch their breath. And then I imagine we're going to continue with the imaginary conversation.
All right, I'm back. Imagine that. I'm back. All right, where were we?
Imagine older people.
Yeah, you were telling us about your imaginations, and my
so-
question to you is, why should anyone care about your imaginations that stipulate?
They don't have to care at all. They shouldn't care if they don't want to, unless they agreed with me. All right, so I want to actually get more into this because I was kind of distracted. All right, so you haven't presented your worldview. You're questioning my fundamental worldview, whatever. I don't even know what the hell the questions are.
What is your worldview?
About what exactly? About
You don't
knowledge.
know you know worldview it means?
Yeah, I understand my perception of reality and my
Yeah,
belief system.
what is the nature of reality? What is the ground of all being that gives rise to your contingent statements?
I believe mind is the ground, is the fundamental instead of matter. I believe mind. So that's my position.
What does that even mean?
I think that the fundamental substrate of reality is mind. It's not matter. I think matter creates everything. I'm sorry, mind is the fundamental. I'm a deist, so I believe God is the ultimate facilitator of all existence, the absolute infinity, which contains all sets that are also infinite in nature and smaller infinities.
And well, that's a very interesting imagination.
It is. I can't reproduce it, so it would be. I guess I could physically show you it, but what I'm trying to say is that's my position. So mind over matter.
And so, why would that imagination be any different? That the ground of all being is, a short Barney the dinosaur.
Well, why would it be different?
Yeah,
Because they're two different. They're absolutely different distinctions. One's not. Barney the dinosaur is not infinite. It's finite in nature. It has a shape. It has whatever it is. It's Barney the dinosaur. It's not infinite in nature. It's not. It cannot contain all possible sets. So it's not the same at all.
So you're saying that there's certain absolutes that can't be violated?
Yeah, I think an absolute infinity.
What absolute? Can you tell me what absolute you know of?
Well, up cannot be down.
Why not?
Because they're two different things.
Why not?
Because
Is there a law of non-contradiction?
Yes, logically.
Good. How do you know that?
Because that's what we could observe.
Can you observe universal abstractions?
in my mind. I could probably imagine them.
No, I didn't ask. I didn't ask if you could imagine. I said, can you observe universal states of affairs?
Okay, give me an example of those
That
things.
A equals A at all times, and A cannot equal not A at all times in all places. Can you observe
Yeah.
that?
You cannot empirically observe it.
Good. Then why did you? Then now you've contradicted yourself.
Why is that?
Because you said you could observe it. Now you're telling him you can't observe it.
I said, no, you cannot observe what you
Good.
just said.
Now you've contradicted yourself again in this conversation.
What do you mean?
You
I'm
said you
talking-
could observe. You told me you could observe the law of non-contradiction. Now you're saying you can't.
I said I can imagine it. You said I'm allowed to imagine.
Okay. No. What? See, now what you're doing is you're flip-flopping now. Okay. Now, which is it? You stated earlier that you can observe the law of contradiction. Then you say that you can't. Can you make up your mind?
No, you can observe the law of non-contradiction with physical objects. This circle cannot be a triangle.
Okay, that's not the law of non-contradiction, sir. The law of
Okay.
non-contradiction is that A cannot equal not A at the same time, at all times in all places. It cannot equal not A.
Yeah, A cannot equal A. And you said I cannot observe this.
Yeah, can you observe a universal law of non-contradiction?
I only could observe it in my mind.
That's not an observation, sir. That's an imagination.
Okay, so
So what you're now doing is you've committed equivocation again.
all right, so I cannot observe A equals A because it doesn't exist physically.
Well, you're advancing that you can account for absolutes, namely the law of non-contradiction, vis-a-vis your imagined deist God versus another imagined Barney the dinosaur, and you tried to justify it by invoking the law of non-contradiction. Now, can you give an account of the law of non-contradiction that it is the case?
Well, if I state that this is the God of deism is different than the Barney the dinosaur, that's that there's it can't be the same. The Barney the dinosaur.
I'm sorry, was English not your first language? I asked you a question. Can you give an account of the law of non-contradiction, sir?
In which way? The way you're saying it is A equals A, right? B. And you're saying,
I'm waiting. I'm all ears.
okay, I'm trying to understand what you're saying here.
Yeah,
Just tell me.
I'll repeat what I said. Maybe there's a
Yeah.
poor internet connection.
No, it's,
I
I'm,
asked
dumber.
you.
I'm stupider
waiting
than
for
you.
you. I'm waiting for you to give a justification of the law of non-contradiction. You said you could. So what is it?
The law of non-contradiction is that something cannot be something else at the same time. So
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
cannot be something else. So you said the Barney the dinosaur and like the God of deism are the same essentially.
No, I didn't say they were the same. I said, what's the difference whether you imagine your deist God versus somebody imagining Barney the dinosaur is the ground of all being? And you said, well, they're distinctly different. And
Yes.
they can't be the same because of the law of non-contradiction. And I said, there's a law of non-contradiction. You said yes. And I said, please justify it. So please do. Please justify the law of non-contradiction.
Well, the law of non-contradiction is basically, like I said, there's one thing cannot be other things. So
Yeah,
whatever-
you're
Julius.
right. That's not a justification. You're simply
Okay.
you're just simply giving me the
I'm-
definition.
Right. He's
Okay.
he's not asking you for what it is. He's asking you
Yeah, I
for
don't
the
need your help,
grounding of
sir.
it.
I appreciate your help, but I don't need your help, Trillion.
Okay. All right. So he wants me to justify why the law of non-contradiction is true.
Yeah, do you just imagine that there's a universal absolute?
I can observe, and I know I said you can't, that I cannot be a man and a woman simultaneously. I could extrapolate this to things that are even abstract.
No,
So
sir, you're
Yeah.
appealing to particulars. The law of non-contradiction is universal. It's absolute and universal. It's true at all
Yes.
times in all places. Now,
Yes.
do you imagine that, or can you give an account that it is the case?
Well, I can't give you an empirical physical. I guess I cannot account for it if that's what the correct answer is, because
Okay, good. Then if you can't account for it, then you don't have the capacity to make assertions, because an assertion, in order to be meaningful, means that its negation can't coexist. Because if its negation can potentially coexist, your assertion doesn't mean anything.
right. See, I feel like this is the thing about this. You're so intelligent to me. It's like what you're saying is so simple, but it's so I don't know the term so well. It's like I'm retarded compared to what you're saying. So it's like I might even agree with what you're saying, but I don't understand the terminology. You get what I'm trying. So I'm trying to understand.
I haven't used philosophy speak.
No, but to me, I'm totally noob at this. Like I love the
Yeah.
philosophy thing, but I've not learned like many of you guys talking about certain things like that.
Mhm.
but I have the ability to find holes in logic as well. Just I don't know. I have this natural ability
You
to do it
you have the ability to find holes in logic.
in people's lives.
What gives you the idea that there's a basis for logic?
Well, I know that logic is it's a tool to see if something's consistent. But
So you imagine that something exists.
well, I don't know if this word imagine is being
Well,
used.
you defined the word no. I'm using it according to your definition. So
Right.
you imagine that something exists.
Well, let's go with the proper knowledge. Let's go with your definition on knowledge and go
Well,
for it.
why are you abandoning your definition?
Because I don't know that I'm ignorant. So I rather learn the
Well, you're not
true.
ignorant. You told me what your definition of knowledge is, and I'm working with your definition. And now that I've acquiesced to your definition of use, you're flip-flopping all over the place.
I have to abandon if it doesn't sound right. I have
So-
no choice but to
So
go.
in other words, you have to abandon your definition because it just leads to gobbledygook.
Exactly. If my
Good.
definition's false, then I have to let go of it.
No, I didn't say it was false. I said it just leads to gobbledygook.
Okay, so well, I don't think gobbledygook is true. So there you go.
Well,
All right, so
how do you find out if something's true? By what means?
it has to be consistent
Do
always.
do you determine that something is true or false in virtue of the laws of logic?
I think it has to. Well, that is partially a way to find if something's true.
Can you
If some,
determine that something is true or false without the laws of logic?
no, I don't believe so.
Okay, good. Are there fundamental absolute laws of logic?
I'd have to say so. Yeah, I'd have to say there has to
Uh,
be.
Okay, based upon what? Your imagination?
If it's a mental construct, then I guess it would have to be something we created as human beings. So yeah, it has to be. So I'm saying mind is fundamental. I think the mind, the consciousness.
How do you?
creates
Okay, is that true?
It's my belief. I can't say it's true
Oh, okay, then why did you just say it's true?
because I believe it.
Okay, so if you believe something, it's true.
Not always.
Well,
can't
then,
prove it.
well,
But
you have to make up your mind and not stop equivocating and flip flopping on terms. It makes you look bad.
it doesn't matter what I look like, man. I'm trying to figure out what's the most. That's the thing. I don't care if it looks stupid. I understand in this chat room there are people like yourself who are very intelligent and versed, and you have to always be correct. But you know you can't always be correct all the time, and even you are flawed in your positions. But you don't know them yet. You haven't met a philosopher who can take you in situations and say, "All right, listen, buddy, this is what you're doing wrong." So I'm new to this, so I'm going to get
Yes,
my
he
ass.
has.
Is what you just said true?
Which statement?
The last three sentences.
Well, I said a lot of things very quickly. So what?
Okay.
is it?
Yeah. Did you say anything that was true?
It could be.
You
There are
don't.
things.
You don't know.
How do I know for a fact everything I say is true? If
Okay.
I said,
Did you within the last 60 seconds in your response to me? Did you say anything that was true?
I believe I did.
Okay. How do you know those statements are true?
I don't know if that's the, okay, here's the thing. So I know
So,
what you,
okay, wait a minute. So wait a minute. You're flip flopping again. First you say it's true. Then when I ask you how you know it's true, you
no,
say
I
okay.
say I believe it's true.
Okay. So
Believing
okay.
is true and
Okay.
it's
Good.
different than I know it's true.
Okay. So you imagine something.
Okay, we'll go
Now
with
everything that you've just said to me in the last 2 minutes, all you're just telling me what you imagine. Why should I consider or conform my thinking to what you imagine? Why?
you don't have, there is no why.
Then why are you telling me your imaginations?
Well, because that's what we all do as people. We like to
Is
share
that
our
is
imagination.
that true? That we all do that?
Well, if nobody knows the absolute certain truth of
Is
anything,
that true that we all do that?
yeah, I believe that's true.
Okay, so in other words, that stipulation is just your you imagine that we all do that.
Yes, I know everything I do is imagination. I understand where
Okay, good.
it's interesting.
Is that statement a product of your imagination?
It has to be.
Is that part of your imagination too?
Yes,
Okay, so everything you say is simply the product of your imagination.
that's what mind is, I believe, right?
Why should anyone conform their thinking to your verbalized imaginations?
No one should. No one should do anything. There's no ought out of this situation. I'm not.
How there are no oughts?
I don't think so.
How did you arrive that there are no oughts in existence?
Where do we see these oughts?
The Bible.
No. The Bible is the imagination of other people putting their opinions on paper
How do you know that?
because it can't be any other way. The Bible didn't just make
How do you
itself.
how do you know that the Bible is just simply the product of man's imagination? How do you know that?
What do you know it's not?
How do I know it's because if all men, we have mind, it was created by nature, the Bible? No. It was
So
not.
what you're saying, the Bible is only the product of a materialistic succession?
The Bible is a product of the mind. Someone wrote, many authors used their imagination.
Right. So in other
And-
words, the Bible is only of human origin and was not the product of divine sovereignty and providence. So you rule that out?
It's very possible that, even though I don't believe it at all, I believe it's man-made because of its inconsistencies.
Okay. But you see, inconsistencies are just that which does not cohere to your imagination. So you reject the Bible because it doesn't conform to your imagination.
No, I reject the Bible because it doesn't conform to its own stories.
Okay. So in other words, there are contradictions in the Bible?
Absolutely.
Okay, good. Are contradictions a problem?
Yes.
Okay, why? Is it because there's a law of non-contradiction?
Yes, and I know you're going to say
Okay.
it's imagined, and I know
Well,
where you're
so
going.
now what you have actually said is there are certain things in the Bible that do not cohere and conform to your imagination.
Okay.
That's your position.
Conform to the
they don't
Bible. It's
Now,
not-
do you want to deny that your objection to the Bible is it doesn't conform and cohere to your imagination?
It doesn't conform. I think the thing with imagination, I'm trying to see where, because I know what you're doing. I feel what you're doing, and it's so genius and so simple. But at the same time, I'm trying to figure out how to refute this position of yours against mine. Because I know what you're doing, because you've taken the word imagination of mine, and I'm trying to not use it that way. I'm trying to say, see, the laws of non-contradiction exist. Where do they exist in nature? I could say they don't exist anywhere. If I said, you know what, what is your name, ZJ? Show me the laws of non-contradiction. You could not reproduce this at all. It'd be your imagination.
How do you know that?
Because I would say, do it right now.
All right, the fact beyond you requesting me doing that, how do you know I couldn't do it?
Because you couldn't.
How do you know that?
Because it's an abstract concept that is not physical.
Oh, okay. So in other words, an omnipotent, omniscient, always truth revealing God cannot make me know certain things that I cannot be wrong about, such as the laws of logic.
We
That
don't even know
Yeah, that is not possible.
the law. Okay, so you're saying if God gave you the truth in your hand,
Okay.
then you couldn't
Now,
have
what
it.
you are saying it would be impossible for it to be verified that there are universal absolute laws of logic. You say that is impossible to ascertain.
See, I would say no, but then you say that's my imagination. This is where it's tricky.
Okay, sir, I'm not really understanding you. Okay.
Yeah.
Are you telling me that something is impossible, and that which is impossible is that it cannot be verified that there are fundamental laws of logic?
If I go with what, yeah, okay. So if I were to say yes, I think you can verify with logic, but you'll just say to me, well, that's your imagination.
Again, I'm still waiting for an answer to the question. How do you know that that's possible? How do you know that an omnipotent, omniscient, always truth revealing God, such as the God of the Bible, can make me know that there are fundamental universal laws of logic in a way that I cannot be wrong? How is that impossible?
It's not impossible.
Well,
But
well, sir, you just said it was impossible. You said nobody can know this. So you've contradicted yourself again.
okay, that's fine. I'll contradict myself because I'm going to find out how this is working. That's how I'm going to do it. All right. So God is infallible. He gives you infallible information. How do I know it's not infallible, right? Or how do I'm trying to understand. Remember, I also have PTSD here. I'm trying to process this. It's like I'm in hyper vigilance mode. So when information comes in, I kind of skip over it. As you can tell, I kind of go from one thing to another.
Well, in your worldview, you can't know anything. You just imagine things.
Right. Well, see, this is where I think this is not misleading, but it's misunderstanding between me and you. Okay. What the definition?
You can know things
I
in the
can.
standard way.
All right. Like, for example, I know I'm speaking to you. You'll say you're imagining.
Okay. Well, how are you using the word knowledge? Because you seem to be equivocating on the word.
All right. Okay. How about this way? I want to use your definition of knowledge.
Okay. Well, that's nice of you to flip. Okay.
I'll abandon my definition because I'm not understanding it. it's obviously not
yeah,
working.
because holding to your definition leads to incoherence.
Okay, good. And therefore I will let it go. So let's use your definition of knowledge and let's try this again.
Mhm.
So tell me the definition of knowledge that you want to use, and I'll go with that.
Knowledge is that which conforms to the mind of God.
The mind of God. Okay, so come here, Max. Now, do you know the mind of God?
In part, yes.
How do you know that?
Why? Because he made me to know.
Okay, and how do you know that?
How? By virtue of his natural and special revelation.
Okay, but you never met God.
I don't have to meet him in order for him to make me know things.
Okay, but how do you? So you see what I'm saying? So you said that you know God made you out of virtue of Him, but you never met God, and you don't even know if He fully exists, do you?
Yeah, I do know that, and so do you.
How do I know this?
Why?
How-
God made you to know. He said it.
That's you just. But that's to me. You have no proof that He exists. By the way, I
Okay.
believe in God. I believe in God. By the way, but I'm saying.
Okay. Well, I'm talking about the God of the Bible. You're not.
No, I'm not. No.
Okay. So, but you see, in your deist worldview, there's no basis for proof. When you say there's no proof, are you invoking the idea that proof, verification, and demonstrability are viable concepts in deism?
I think that. So you're saying I need physical proof to prove that God exists?
Sir, you said you can't prove that. That stipulation presupposes
it's
the viable.
literally-
You're over talking me. When you say you can't prove that, does that stipulation presuppose the viability of proof verification at all for anything?
I have to understand that. Like I said,
You
you're
said you
using-
can't prove X. When you say you
Yes.
can't prove X, does that presuppose the viability of proof for some things?
I'm still drawing a blank, man. I'm not as smart as
You
you.
said you can't prove X. Does that stipulation that you made, is it presupposing that some things can be proven and others can't?
Only empirically can be proven. So you cannot prove God to me.
Empirically proven. Could you show me, how do you know something's empirically proven or verified?
Okay, so I can show you a ball, and I can show you that this triangle is not a ball. I can show you that this is
Okay.
heavier than. Okay.
Well, how would you do that in a chance universe where events happen spontaneously?
Are we in a chance universe? That's another question.
Yeah, that's a good
Suppose.
question. How would you do that in a chance universe?
Well, I don't think we're in a chance universe.
Okay, then you're in a non-chance universe. So the world that you live in is one where there's the reality of the external physical world, causal connections between events and laws of nature. Is that the world that you're speaking from?
Yeah, and it also contains mind
Good.
as well, which is
Good. Can you tell me, how do you account for the causal principle and laws of nature?
I would say God.
What God?
The God that is not the Bible. I'm telling you, like that's what I'm trying to.
Oh, well then how do you know that created a world where there's the causal principle and laws of nature?
I don't know that I have to assume that, just like you're assuming God.
Oh, but
made
wait
the
a minute. So
Bible.
you just flip-flopped again. You just tell me you do know it by your God. Then when I ask you how you know it, you say you don't know.
It's my belief.
Oh, so you imagine it then.
Just like you're imagining your God.
Okay, so that is that a true statement you just made?
Yeah.
Do you know that?
Yes, because you have to
Okay.
imagine your God.
How do you know that the conceptualization that I verbalize is not God ordained and revealed by God? How do you know that it's only the product of my imagination?
Okay, so that's all right. So you're saying that if God, okay, so
If I stipulate the conceptualization of my God, which is the God of the Bible, is it your assertion that my stipulation is only an imagination of God?
okay, so you're saying that the information in the Bible could be
That was a
true.
question, sir. You see, I have a dog with a bone. If someone doesn't answer my question, I repeat it.
Yeah.
You asserted that my stipulation of the God of the Bible is only the product of my imagination. Is that your assertion?
No, because here's the thing.
Okay, good. I'm glad you flipped.
Okay, I will flip again because I'm not going to sit here and try to protect the position that I agree with you. If it's so you're saying that the Bible could have infallible information from an omnipotent being, right?
Yes, sir.
That-
Are you going to retract and abandon your statement, or are you going to double down that
I'm not going to
my
double down.
stipulation?
I'm not going to double down on something that I think is wrong.
Okay, good.
If you've shown me that you can get information just because you're a fallible being, the Bible could be given from an infallible being, right?
How do you know that?
How do I know what? I'm saying from your perspective. You're saying, you're asking
No.
me.
My worldview doesn't allow for that.
I thought you're coming from a worldview of a Christian, and
That's right. The Christian worldview does not allow that the Bible is the revelation from a fallible God.
Right. Okay. So then how is it possible that the Bible has contradictions in it?
Well, in order to evaluate that there are contradictions in the Bible, you have to show that contradictions are a problem.
Yeah, there are. I think they are a problem.
Okay.
So,
Okay, good. Well, first you have to establish the law of non-contradiction, sir.
okay. So if we establish the law of not, okay.
Have you established from your, in order to do an internal critique of the Christian worldview, you
Yes.
first have to establish a foundation, a basis from which you can reason from. And you're also going to have to establish, what the nature of reality is. You'll have to establish the causal principle, laws of nature. And you're also going to have to establish at least that there are fundamental laws of logic. Can you do any of those?
Well, I could try with my imagination. So,
Oh,
okay.
so you're going to critique the Bible because it doesn't conform and cohere to your imagination?
Yes.
Oh,
See, that's
okay.
all, because I have to go with what you're claiming I'm saying. I cannot say, because what else can I, all right, look, put it this way. We're all beings. We all have a subjective reality. You cannot have it. You cannot have my
Wait a minute.
objective
Could you
experience.
repeat that statement, please?
Yes. Your existence, the way you live your life is subjective to you. It's impossible for me to be you. I can never see from your eyes. So all of your worldviews that you have.
Let's not be too wordy about this. Are you saying that everything is subjective?
I'm saying from you, it's always subjective.
Sir, is everything subjective?
It's the only way you can perceive it. Yes. I'm not saying everything outside of you is subjective.
Sir, are all stipulations about reality subjective?
No. This is what I'm trying to tell you.
Oh, so just some stipulations are subjective.
Some. So you, as a person, your name is
Right.
I'm sorry, ZJ. I can never be you. So when you speak,
Why can't you be me?
because it's impossible.
Why? How is it impossible?
I cannot be you. It's
Why?
not, because we're two different entities.
Right. All you're simply doing is restating the same claim in different words. Why can't you be? An impossibility.
Asking the same question in different words.
An impossibility means that there's an absolute that cannot be violated. How do you know that how do you know that there's an absolute?
It's absolutely impossible for me and you to be the same person.
Okay, sir, all you're simply doing is restating the same claim. How do you know that there is any absolute?
Because this is
in order to say X is impossible, there must be an absolute that cannot be violated. So how do you know that there is an absolute?
Because I could observe it.
Sir, how do you observe a absolute?
Well, it's absolutely impossible for me and you to be the same.
Listen, all you're simply doing is you're restating the assertion.
Okay.
In order for something to be impossible, there must exist an absolute that cannot be violated. How do you know that any absolute exists?
Well, by observation.
What did you observe that guarantees that something is absolute?
Don't interrupt him. Let him actually answer your first question, please.
Okay, so I can only prove, or even attempt to prove with my imagination, if you will.
Okay, so
the things I could observe.
Proving, okay, so proving things is that which conforms to your imagination?
No, the distinctions between different things. One thing cannot be another thing.
Why?
Because it cannot. That violates the whole thing right there. It's impossible.
The law of non-contradictions.
Exactly,
Okay,
and then
I'm waiting for you to establish the universal law of non-contradiction.
So the universal law of non-contradiction, without my imagination, would have to be logically stated that one thing cannot be another thing.
Okay, how do you account? Listen, how do you account that it is the case that the law of non-contradiction holds at all times and all places?
I would have to be able to be omnipotent to see all times and all places, which I am not.
So you can establish the law of non-contradiction.
I can't establish it without.
So do you establish the law of non-contradiction by blind faith?
You would have to logically say that this is the case. I don't think. Actually, you don't have to be omnipotent.
Would you like me to repeat the question? You see, you have a nasty habit that when you get asked a question, you just meander. You just keep talking. Okay, you're like the Energizer Bunny.
I'm trying to process
Now
it.
I'm waiting for you to give an account of the law of non-contradiction. If you're going to employ the law of non-contradiction in your deistic worldview, please establish it.
Okay, so when you say account, do you want me to give you an example of it?
Yeah, I want you to justify that A cannot equal not A at all times in all places.
Okay, because A is itself. Okay, so A is itself.
Oh, so you're just going to, well, you see, asserting that A equals A at all times in the same places, you would first have to establish that. Number two, that's not an establishment of the law of non-contradiction. So you'd have to establish both.
All right, so let me ask you this: how would you establish it?
Okay, how do I establish that? By the
Yes.
revelation of the Christian God.
Okay. Now, how is that any different that A equals A? Because A equals A could be circular. I say A equals A, period. No one could prove this. The
Right,
Christian revelation.
that's a circular statement, but that doesn't account for its absoluteness and universality.
But even the Christian revelation doesn't.
Oh, how do you know that? How do you know that?
I don't know it, and neither do you.
Okay, good. Well, if I don't know it, then what necessarily follows from that statement is that the Christian God does and cannot exist. Are you aware of that?
It may or may not exist.
Sir, listen, your
Yes.
stipulation is that I cannot know that there are laws of logic. Okay, you said I can't know that. Now, what necessarily follows, if that statement is true, then what necessarily follows is that the Christian God cannot exist. Do you have a defeater for the Christian God, sir? Because in the case that the Christian God exists, then your statement would not be true.
The defeater of the Christian God is very simple to me. If this Christian God says one thing, but then contradicts himself, I don't have to be omnipotent.
So the defeater of the Christian God is that there's something in the Bible that doesn't conform to your imagination?
No, it doesn't conform to its own claims.
Sir,
Its
you're
own claims. I didn't write
okay.
I didn't write the Bible, so it's not my
Okay.
imagination.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? If I wrote the Bible, it'd be in my imagination. I did not write the Bible. By reading something like there's an all-loving God who floods his own children,
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't make any sense to me
So what?
whatsoever.
So what? It doesn't make any sense. It
Okay.
does do things that don't make sense. Does that necessarily mean that it's false?
No. So
Okay,
now,
good. So now, when
now,
you told me that I cannot know certain things that the Bible says I can know it, then what necessarily follows from that is the Christian God does not exist. Now you're going to have to falsify the existence of the Christian God in order for your stipulation to at least have a chance to stand.
so
Do you
here's
have
the thing.
do you have a falsification for the Christian God?
When something, I'll get to it. Okay, so if someone says something that's false one time, maybe two, if
How do
there's
you know?
hundreds,
How do you know that something is false?
well, if someone makes a claim that this is an all-loving God,
No, I didn't ask you about the specific. I said, how are you, but what is the root foundational means by which you can determine that something is false? Is it in virtue of the law?
it has to be inconsistent. It's inconsistency.
Sir, you mean it can't contradict?
Exactly.
Okay, good. So are you affirming the law of non-contradiction?
I am affirming it, but
Good.
somehow it's impossible for me to tell you it exists.
Is your affirmation of the law of non-contradiction simply and only the product of your imagination?
I guess it can't be. I mean, I don't know how to answer. I don't know how to.
Well, if you don't know how to answer that, then you can't wield around a lightsaber that doesn't work.
I mean, the thing is, anything I say, you go back to my imagination, and then when I say to you, your subjective experience, it doesn't apply to you. It seems.
Well, sir, because that statement you just made, you've conceded that all your stipulations are the product of your imagination. Didn't you say that?
And if I accept that, then also the imagination of these authors of the Bible is also their imagination and their subjective even if there was an infallible Christian God who said, this is my word, how do you know they got the word correctly?
Why? Because God can reveal that, and he did.
But the man is infallible, so even if God gave him the perfect word, they could screw it up. And as you can see,
No, that's a contradiction. What you have just offered is a contradiction in terms.
No,
it's amusing that somebody who's advancing the law of non-contradiction has just contradicted himself. So are you telling me that an omnipotent God cannot sovereignly and providentially guide fallible human beings to communicate and write a message down to the very words without error?
If he did a terrible job, because
well, sir, that's offering a valuation is not the same thing. Can an omnipotent God providentially and sovereignly guide fallible men to write a message without error? Is that impossible?
Sure he could.
Okay,
So now,
so you now contradicted your position.
Okay, I'll contradict. Fine, I'll contradict it as many times to get to this point. If this is the case, if you say an omnipotent, infallible God gave fallible men perfect information, then there should be zero contradictions in the Bible, and there's thousands of them. So therefore, that God that you believe in must not exist or must not be infallible.
Well, sir, first of all, you'd have to establish that contradictions are a problem in your worldview.
No, contradictions are a problem, period,
Why?
because they're false.
How do you, well, okay.
So then it's not fallible. So now is God?
Well, it
if
goes.
God-
Well, why is one part of contradictory statements false? You're saying if A is true, not A cannot be true at the same time, in the same sense. Why is that?
No, they're both not. They're not false.
Sir, if you say something is false, are you
Yes.
doing so in virtue of the law of non-contradiction?
Yes, I am.
Good.
I
Can
know.
you please give an account that the law of non-contradiction is true at all times in all places? Because if you do not account for the law of non-contradiction, then your attack upon the Bible is just simply saying the Bible does not cohere with your imagination.
Okay, so see, this is the issue, and I see what you're doing. I just don't know how to get around it. But I know what you're doing, and it's so great. I love it, and that's why I love this
Well,
conversation.
sir, I'm delighted at your insight, but I'm still waiting. You have launched an attack that the Bible contradicts itself.
Yes.
That attack is also stipulating that there are universal absolutes that cannot be violated. Please
Yes.
give me a justification for that. Otherwise, your attack upon the Bible is that
Okay.
the Bible does not conform and cohere to your imagination.
Okay. All right.
Now,
so
is
let me-
that what you're saying? Are you saying that the Bible is to be rejected because it doesn't conform to your imagination? Is that your position?
I'm trying to express
Is that your position?
I'm going to tell you what my position is.
It's a
See,
very
that-
simple question. Is it your position that the Bible is to be rejected because it doesn't conform to your imagination?
No, it's not my position.
Okay,
because
good.
I'm
Okay,
trying to. I
so
got
the
to
Bible is to
transcend
be
myself.
rejected. So the Bible is to be rejected because it violates the law of non-contradiction. What law of non-contradiction,
Okay.
Julius?
So the law of non-contradiction, even though I cannot prove it somehow myself.
Is your stipulation of the law of non-contradiction one of imagination?
Again, this is going back to imagination. I want to transcend myself completely from this.
Is your stipulation that there's a law of non-contradiction, is it simply the figment of your imagination?
If it's not physically, if it doesn't physically exist, does it exist at all? Is my question to you.
Sir, is your stipulation of the law of non-contradiction a figment of your imagination or not?
I mean, again, this word imagination, it's in my mind. Okay, so I believe it's law. It's a abstract concept that human beings understand to express
No,
something physical.
that's another global assertion which you'll have to defend. Now, is the law of non-contradiction true at all times in all places, independent of your ideas or your conceptualization?
It must be true, and I cannot give an example.
How do you know that?
Because otherwise it wouldn't be the law of non-contradiction. It wouldn't be itself. I'm trying to. Okay, all right, I see what's
All
happening.
you're just somebody says it has to be because it has to be.
And that's what law of non-contradiction is itself, a circular. Isn't it?
Well, sir, you're wrong because you're wrong.
Well, I am wrong. If
You're
I'm
wrong because you're wrong because you're wrong.
if I'm wrong, then I'm
Well,
wrong.
the law.
yes.
Well, you just said the law of non-contradiction. It has to be because it has to be because it has to be.
Well, what's wrong with a
You-
paradox like that?
It's not. That's not a paradox. That's just
I'm not
foolishness.
No, because see, it would
Sir,
be-
you're wrong because the moon is filled with green cheese. Why is the
No,
moon filled with green cheese? Because the moon is filled with green cheese.
because God put green cheese in there. Actually,
See, you have no, you have no answer. You see, you attempt to attack the Bible, and you have nothing. You have nothing to stand on.
I think the issue is this: when we began this conversation about my imagination, you established a groundwork where I can't even escape that without flip flopping. I can't even say, okay,
Sir, is there a foundation from which you to verbalize metaphysically intelligible statements?
okay. So here's what I'm trying to say.
Did you need me to repeat the question?
Yes, repeat the question.
What is the ground of all being that will provide for the prerequisites of you making ultimate and metaphysically intelligible statements?
Consciousness and mind?
What is consciousness? Is it brain states?
No,
Oh, okay, then what is it?
it's the substrate of. It's the absolute existence. It's. I believe the fundamental substrate of all existence.
So you imagine it?
No,
Okay, good. Then what's your justification
Of what? Consciousness?
of anything?
Experience.
What is experience?
Experience is what I am conscious, or so my experience is the existence that I have. I am consciousness in
Yeah,
this
you're
form.
just I mean, you're just rambling incoherently now.
Why is it incoherent? What is incoherent with what I said? Because it doesn't agree with your
What you
worldview.
just no, what
See,
you
I
just
could flip it
no,
on you
sir,
too, man.
sir, I didn't say that it was inconsistent with my worldview. I'm just saying what you just said in the last 30 seconds is mumbo jumbo.
Why?
Because it was mumbo
All
jumbo.
right, so now
So,
so now wait. You can tell
you're just saying, well, my experience is my experience of my thoughts. I mean, what does that
What?
mean?
Didn't say that.
Oh, wait, I'm at now. You can tell me where I contradicted myself in that.
I didn't say you contradict yourself.
All right.
Saying something's mumbo jumbo does not necessarily entail a contradiction.
Is that your imagination that it's mumbo jumbo?
No, that's a conclusion based upon my cognitive processes that God has given me.
So I see. So your cognitive processes are not imagination. It's absolute truth because God gave it to you. Mine are imagined because I don't believe in the Christian
Yeah,
God.
the God of the well, the God of
Yes,
the
it's
Bible,
actually
the God of the Bible has ordained that I can know some things that I cannot be wrong about. But when you reject the God of the Bible, any stipulation, any assertion you make, I'm going to ask you what the ground of it is. And so far, you have none. So I asked you earlier, which you evaded the question, which you've evaded pretty much, attempted to evade most of my questions. What is the ground of all being that will provide the prerequisites for your capacity to reason?
I believe in. I said God. I just said not the Christian God.
How do you know that your capacity to reason operates in a basically reliable and properly way?
How do I know it?
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. How do you know it under the standard definition of know, as opposed to your definition of know?
Well, I think the only way to know something is to experience it. First of all, that's how you truly know
No, but you
something.
see, but you have to reason about your experience. Now, how do you know that that reason is operating in a basically reliable and proper way?
It's self-correcting if it's false or true.
Sir, that's entirely circular. What do you mean self-correcting? That's presupposing the
Well,
basic
it's
reliability
not.
of reasoning. I'm asking you, this is a very simple question.
Yes,
Either
but I'm
you're
very
not going to
stupid.
understand it or you're just going to be evasive.
I don't want to evade you. I'd never
Okay,
want to
good.
evade
So how do you know in your deistic worldview
you. Yes.
that your experience, you exude reason that is the product of basically reliable cognition?
Yeah. So in a deistic worldview, we believe, like you sort
I
of
didn't
did,
ask
that.
you how you believe it. I said, how do you know it?
Well, now this is a question. How do we know anything?
I didn't ask you if you believed it. I said, how do you know that your reason operates reliably in your deistic worldview?
Okay. So deism believes that God gave us logic and reason, right?
I'm
That's
not
what we
asking you
believe.
what you believe. I'm asking
I know.
what you know.
But that's none of us know anything for sure.
Okay. Did everybody hear that?
Yes,
None of
we
us
heard it.
know
Know anything
anything.
for sure.
So
Now,
was that a knowledge statement you
now,
just made?
now let me
Was
correct
that
it.
a knowledge
We
statement that
don't.
you make?
Not
I agree.
anything.
You just asserted that none of us know anything.
No, I will
I
say it
agree.
again because here's why. I'm going to correct myself because that's a universal quantifier. When we do know some things, we don't know everything.
Can you tell me something that you know?
I know that I am myself.
Well,
And now,
would you, in order to know that, would your reason have to be operating basically reliably?
I would have to, I just know that I don't have to have even no
Sir,
reason.
in order to know that, would you have to reason it?
I don't know. The cognitive, I think therefore, is that reason? Yes, I would
Yeah,
say.
sir, you have to be probably one of the most evasive individuals that I've ever
Oh,
spoke with. I mean, you're very polite, you're very cordial.
I'm not trying to be,
Okay.
but go ahead.
Okay, well, maybe it's just a habit that you have.
Maybe I
Okay.
just suck at this, but that's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah. The point is, you're telling me that you know something, but knowing that, is that a product of your reasoning faculties?
Well, it has to be. Yeah. I
Good.
guess
Now,
so.
how do you know that those reasoning faculties operate in a basically reliable way?
Not always. Sometimes reason can be faulty. Do you agree
Sir,
with that?
how do you know that at any time your basic cognition operates reliably? How do you know
Because
that at all?
when things are congruent and add up, then they are working correctly.
Wait a
The
minute,
things-
but doesn't your cognition have to operate basically reliable to say that?
yes, but there's
So you're not
reliability.
answering the question. You see what you're doing is you're being circular.
Okay.
Okay.
Why CJ reject the revelation of Muhammad and Joseph Smith?
Okay.
I mean, we can go into those other. I'm not going to
Okay.
argue.
Well,
his-
you're telling
I'm-
me you know something, but you're giving me circular reasoning. When you know something, you told me you know it in virtue of your reason. But then I ask you, how do you know that your basic reason or cognition operates basically reliable? And you say, well, because I reason it.
No, because I could see things in experience. I could see what
Okay,
something.
seeing things, we see, sir, seeing
Yeah.
things is a sensory phenomenon. What you mean
Yes.
is you interpret through your reason your sensory experience.
Okay, yeah. So through the collective, so through my
Right.
experience in life, collective
So you
information.
have to reason. You use your reason. Would your reason have to operate basically reliably in order to reason that your reason operates basically reliably?
Okay, so
You just assume you're just taking your reason as an unjustified axiom.
I see what you're saying.
So you don't know it, do you?
Do I know my reason is not always? You're saying, okay, so I don't think it's absolutely always wrong or absolutely always right.
Well,
I
it
think there's a
doesn't-
middle ground.
Well, I'm not really interested in what you imagine. You said that you know something, but when I ask you, do you know it in virtue that your reason is basically reliable? You can't answer that. That's a legitimate question to your statement that you know something.
The only way I can
So
know
when
my
you see
reason-
the consequences is when you reject the revelation of the Christian God by your pathetic attempts of attacking the Bible, you demonstrate by your own concession you don't know anything at all.
But here's the thing about the revelation of the Christian God: you yourself don't even know it's true. It's impossible for you to tell me to know it's true.
How do you know that that's impossible?
It's literally impossible for you personally
Sir,
to know it's true,
how do you know that anything is impossible?
because I have to use the same mental reasoning you do, and it's how
Okay,
is it
but
reliable?
but you see, you're assuming your reasoning is basically reliable. How do you know that? And by the way, even if your basic reasoning, even if you could establish that it had a basic reliability, which you can't, let me finish. Even if you could, which you can't, how would you know that any absolute exists? To say something is impossible is to invoke that there is an unchanging absolute. Do you agree with that statement?
Okay, yes, I do. So it's
Okay,
not
good.
possible. for me-
So what is the absolute that cannot be violated?
Okay, so it's not possible for me to reject the Christian God.
Okay, sir, what is the okay, listen, you stated that X is
Okay.
impossible. Now, I'm asking you, please see, the problem with you is you're a motor mouth. You're like the Energizer Bunny. You keep on talking. But you see, you're not really conversing with me. Now, you
Okay.
stated that something is impossible. In order to invoke coherently that something is impossible, there must be an unchanging absolute. What is that absolute and how do you know?
Okay. So there's an absolute that I don't. All right, so I would say God. So would you. Okay. Now we have different beliefs.
How do you know that God is an absolute, sir, in your deistic worldview?
Because it's the most fundamental thing that encapsulates all existence. It's the
How do you
philosophy
know that?
that I don't know.
Okay, so you're asserting that which you don't know.
Yes, and so are
So
you.
you're making a knowledge statement that's something you don't know.
But isn't everyone doing this? That's my point. So even you do this. And when you say the Christian,
Is that? But do you know that?
do I know that?
Yeah, you're making more global claims. Do you know that?
So you're telling me there are people who,
Sir, listen. What
Okay,
have you? We've been talking now for a good 45 minutes. Okay?
yes,
I guess you've noticed by now I'm a dog with a bone. When I ask you a specific
Yeah,
question,
I
I
know.
expect an answer. And instead of you just being evasive,
the only way I could actually, the only way to go with this is that I don't know anything at all.
oh, and do you know that?
Well, actually, I don't even know that. Say it. So that actually,
Okay,
so-
good. So
so-
you see, so this is the consequences when you reject the revelation of the Christian God, his incarnation of Jesus Christ to save your soul from damnation. You end up in a world where you don't know anything, which is foolishness. This is why the Bible says, "Where is the wise man of this age? Where is the debater of this age? Has not God turned the wisdom of the world into foolishness?" What you have just told me is your worldview is entirely foolish because you don't know anything.
Yeah, but you see,
Isn't it foolish? Listen, isn't it foolish for you to make knowledge claims and then say, well, we don't know anything at all, and then go on and make knowledge claims?
But you don't need a God
Okay,
of the
okay,
Bible
good.
for
You're
that.
evading my question again. Isn't it foolish to assert
Yes,
that no one
yes.
can know anything? Good. Thank you for
Absolutely,
thank you for
absolutely foolish.
confirming what the Bible just said.
Okay, so the Bible said it. Okay, but someone who's not even in someone can say that who's not someone who believes the Bible. So an atheist could say that.
Sir, can atheists make metaphysically intelligible statements?
Yeah.
Without. Okay, good. Do you know what metaphysical intelligibility means?
No.
Okay.
So-
It means that it actually means something with respect to the ground of all being.
Okay.
Okay, so does an atheist know what the ground of all being is?
No, because he's a materialist.
Good. If he doesn't know what the ground of all being is, then how do we know that his statements of contingency actually conform to the ground of all being, which he doesn't know?
Exactly, he doesn't know. So this is
therefore an atheist doesn't have any basis to account that they are making metaphysically viable statements.
that's correct. So
Good.
CJ,
Good.
okay,
So now you've contradicted yourself. So now you
yes.
said that an atheist can't make
But-
metaphysically intelligible statements.
So when you say I contradict myself, that's fine because that means I'm wrong, which means I can learn the truth. Now I'm going to ask you, CJ, ZJ, or what do they call you, Darth Dawkins?
Mhm.
Okay, so you've done a great job deconstructing my entire, I guess, making me believe. I guess I can't even say I know now that I know believe nothing because it's whatever. In other words, you leave me completely awestruck and whatever the word is, completely now is nothingness. Now you say that this is what happens when you reject the God of the Bible, the Christian, blah blah blah. How do you know that that's even the case?
Why? Through God's natural and special revelation, and without which we wouldn't know anything.
But how do you know God exists?
By his revelation, because apart
That's
from God's
circular reasoning.
wait, excuse me, let me finish. I'll be glad to address all your questions,
Okay.
and I certainly won't be evasive like you have. Okay.
Okay, I appreciate
We know things in virtue of God's revelation. You ask me, how do I know that? I say because of God's revelation. Now, if you said that that's circular reasoning, is that correct?
if well, circular reasoning. If you make the claim that this is God's yes, that would be circular reasoning.
God's revelation as the ultimate and final authority can
Okay.
only be verified by the ultimate authority, which is God and his revelation. Do you object to that in principle?
If that's truly God, then
Do
no, I would
you
not
did you
reject
hear
it.
my question? Do you reject that in principle? That the ultimate authority is the ultimate verifier of its ultimate authority, and you cannot appeal to an independent source to verify the ultimate authority. You either
agree.
accept that or you reject it.
I accept that.
Good. So that's how I know things, because of God's revelation.
Yes, but the God of the Bible, how do you know that's the ultimate God?
Because he revealed it.
Okay, you said it.
And the proof of the Christian God is the denial and not acceptance means that you can't prove anything. You'll be left there silent. You won't be able to justify any stipulation whatsoever, which I have demonstrated here today.
But why must it be the Christian God? Why couldn't
Why?
it be Allah?
Why? Because you can't offer other worldviews. To do so is incoherent, sir.
But Muhammad, Allah.
Okay,
Yahweh.
Julius. A worldview is all-encompassing. It includes the ground of all being and contingencies, which are specific and derivative of the ground of all being. Do you understand that before I move on?
Okay.
Okay, so when you offer a contingency, other than invoking the ground of all being, whatever contingency that you propose, any potentiality, it has to be specific to or dependent upon the ground of all being. You cannot speak from one ground of all being and say another ground of all being is potentially actual. That's a contradiction, sir.
Yes, it's contradiction. Okay.
Yeah, you can't offer any other worldview. All you can do is present your worldview. Either what you're going to have to do is you will either have to bow the knee to Jesus Christ, who revealed himself and who provided reliable, objective, historical revelation, and that he died for your sins so you and I can escape damnation, or you're going to have to sit there and be quiet.
Yes, but you don't even know any of that's happened.
Okay, sir, is that a knowledge claim? How do you, okay, when you say I don't know that happens, from that statement, it necessarily follows the falsity of the Christian God. Are you aware of that?
I am aware of that.
Okay, good. Do you have a defeater for the Christian God?
Because you've never experienced the Christian God
Sir,
personally.
sir, when you say I don't know that, that necessarily
Okay, I see what you. All right, so
the
all
Christian God. Now, in order for your stipulation to hold, you're going to have to falsify the Christian God.
right, okay. So
You,
that's not.
you understand that?
Yes,
Your
it's not
mission,
possible.
your
It's not
mission,
possible.
should you choose to, your mission, should you choose to accept it, is now that you're saying that I cannot know that the Christian God has revealed himself, you're going to have to show the falsity of the Christian God, because in the absence of you doing so, your statement is just a product of your imagination.
Okay, so I see. I cannot falsify the Christian. That's the statement.
Good. If you can't falsify the Christian God, then your
Mhm.
statement is not necessarily true, and
Okay.
it's dismissed. And by the way,
Okay.
you already told me you don't know anything.
Right. So I cannot falsify the Christian God.
Why is it that when you just said, you said earlier a few minutes ago, you don't know anything and neither do I, then if you don't know anything, how do you know that I don't know that the Bible is the word of God?
Excellent. Good. Okay.
You see, you've screwed yourself.
Oh, I didn't screw myself. I learned. See, I don't care if I lose to you or anyone else.
No, you're not losing to me.
But you see what I'm saying?
Sir, you're not. Listen, don't think of it that way. You're not losing to me.
I don't think of it.
The word of God is showing that your rejection of the word of God, the Bible, leads to complete incoherence and foolishness. You didn't lose to me, sir. You lost to the God of the Bible.
Okay, the God
because you want to keep on giving the God of the Bible the middle finger. God is making you look foolish.
I don't think it has to be the God of the Bible.
Okay,
so you and I both.
Well, then if it is not the God of the Bible, in order for you to make any viable, metaphysically intelligible statement, it's going to have to be specific to, and derivative of the ground of all being. What is it?
Well, I believe in a God. I
didn't ask you what you believe. I said, what is it?
God. It has to be God.
Okay, good. How do you
agree
know?
with you. I agree with you. It's
God. No, sir. I didn't say we're talking. When you say God, do you mean a deistic God or you mean the God of the Bible?
I believe a deistic God.
Okay, good. Tell me how you know anything about this God.
Well, it's
what God?
Okay, so the God I believe in, which I think we actually somewhat agree.
Yeah, I'm not interested in you telling me your beliefs. I want to tell me
Darth,
what do you know? What do you
Okay.
know about that God?
Okay, so I know that God created nature.
How do you know that?
Because he's the fundamental facilitator of all existence. How do
you know that?
Because that must be the case. There's no other
way.
way.
Why must it be the case? How do you know that? How do you know that?
It wouldn't be God.
Okay. So you're saying you know it because you define it that way.
Well, how else could God be the ultimate fundamental?
Well, sir, so you know something because you define it that way?
No, I'm saying that's the only way.
Okay, good. Well, that's because you're defining it that way.
All right, so then God is not.
Okay, so here's the problem. The bottom line is, in order for you to say that you know that has to be the product of your reason. But do you know that this deistic God has constructed a world where there's causality, laws of nature, and the capacity to reliably reason? Do you know that?
Okay, I see what you're saying. So because the deistic God did not reveal himself in such the way the Bible God did, I cannot know. That's what you're saying.
Okay. When you
Am I correct?
When you embrace a deist, let me finish. When you embrace a deistic worldview, you're going to be in the same epistemic theory of knowledge quagmire as the atheist. You will simply be stipulating brute facts for which you cannot account for.
Now, here's where the deist will say, because I read the Age of Reason. Okay, so God's work of the Bible is his word. In deism, God's work is nature itself. We could all observe gravity, let's say. So if we all
does observation require reason?
I think it just needs experience.
Sir, does observation in, for example, in empiricism, if you study the philosophy of science,
yes.
All observations, okay, in empiricism are, from a secular point of view,
yes.
are inherently theory laden. Okay, all observations are governed by one's overarching paradigm. So there is no just naked, there isn't just data, uninterpreted data out there, or sense perception. The sense perception has to be interpreted. Now,
yes.
in order for that sense data to be interpreted, there has to be reason. But you told me you don't know that you have the capacity to reliably reason. do you?
Not always. Not always. I said not
Can
always.
you? No, I didn't ask you. I didn't ask you if your reason was perfect. I said
Okay.
you
it's not
told me
perfect.
you couldn't
Well,
justify that your reason is basically reliable.
No, I said many times that not always.
Sir, you're not understanding this. We're not talking about a perfection of reason. We're
Yeah.
saying that there is always a basicality of properly functioning reason. Does that
Okay.
exist?
I think it does
No. Okay. How do you know that?
because I don't know how to explain that. How I would know
Well,
it.
did your God reveal it to you?
Well, I don't think he had to see. With the choices we make, if you believe in that, we can determine what is beneficial, what is not. We can say this is going to do this
Well,
and
wait a
this is
minute.
going to do that.
Before you can talk about determination, you're going to have
Yeah.
to establish.
No, the deistic God did not reveal anything
Okay, if he
in
didn't
any
reveal
word.
anything to you, good. Then on what basis do you assert that you have a basic reliability of reason?
Because here's what I'm trying to say. Let me explain what revelation in deism term means. Because you
Okay,
have revelation at the word.
sir, this entire conversation, 9 times out of 10, you've been entirely evasive to the questions I'm asking.
I don't want to be, but I haven't even established what revelation
But you are.
deism is.
Look,
Because you're
all right,
okay.
can you establish? Listen, it's real simple. Can you establish that in your deistic worldview, that your God created beings with reason that is basically reliable? Can you establish that?
The only way I cannot establish that empirically or prove it 100%.
Is there any way that you can establish that that is the case?
There's no way I could establish it's my belief.
Okay, good. So therefore, when you tell me you reason this and you reason that, all you're simply stipulating is what you imagine.
Okay, we've already been through that.
So you imagine this about your deistic God, you imagine that about your deistic God, but you don't know that those imaginations are veridical, do you?
I don't know, but that doesn't mean they aren't.
Okay, good. So all you're simply offering it to me are just
my belief.
imaginations.
Yes, my
It's just your
imagined
imaginations.
Yes.
Yeah.
So now when I go to your Bible, you're saying, well, this is the word of God, which was handed down by fallible men who wrote these scriptures over thousands of years, many authors, many of the things in them don't make sense. Some of them are made up stories, like you don't believe someone was swallowed by a whale. I hope not.
How do you well, hold on a second, slow down. How do you know that some of these accounts are made up and are not historical?
Well, to be swallowed by a whale for 3 days.
Well, wait a minute. Are you giving me a knowledge statement or a statement of your imagination?
Okay, so have we ever seen a talking snake? No. So the
Okay,
chances of talking.
Sir, listen to me. I'm a dog with a bone. Now
I
you
know you're a
stated
dog.
that some of the accounts are made up. Now, is that statement you just made the product of your imagination, or do you know that?
I guess if I have to be congruent, it must be my imagination.
Okay, good.
Because
So
I
it's
cannot.
it's not necessarily true that they're made up, right?
Right. So it's not necessarily true.
Okay, so all you're simply telling me is you imagine it. So
Okay.
but what if you imagine something about the Bible?
Okay. So but that doesn't mean my imagination is false.
I didn't say it was false. What I'm
Okay.
saying
All right.
is
So let's go with that.
No, sir. Listen, being fast talking and evasive isn't going to help you one bit. Okay.
I'm not trying to do that.
Okay. Well, you have a pretty good habit of doing it. Now, all you're simply stipulating is, I imagine this, I imagine that. Who cares about what you imagine? So what?
Okay. That's fine. But I'm saying.
What if I come to you and I say, I imagine that there are leprechaun Martians who are using video game technology with ray beams to manipulate your mind. Who cares what I imagine?
Yes. Now, how do we falsify that? We can't. So does that mean that's true? Maybe.
Okay. Is it true that you can't falsify things?
How do we even prove them at all? Is my question.
That's a question. So, sir, you see, you're just left in a hopeless loop. You have nothing but your imagination.
Right. But I'm saying also.
Right.
Here's what I'm trying to say. Okay, so let me get to the point where the deistic God reveals himself in nature.
That's a contradiction in terms, sir.
How is that possible?
Yeah, how would you know that he reveals himself in nature?
Okay, so the deist believes that God's work. So here's the thing.
You imagine it.
Okay, all right, I'll imagine. We'll go with your terms. Okay, watch this.
Well, why should I accept your imagination?
Why should we accept? Okay, let me ask you.
Why should I accept? Listen, I'm not interested in what you imagine.
You don't have to accept my imagination.
Listen, let's get this real clear. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to be rude. I think you're a nice guy. I
it's
think
not-
you've conducted yourself excellently in the debate in terms of your demeanor, but I'm not interested in what you imagine. I don't care about what you imagine.
Okay.
Okay,
Right.
so you need to drop what you imagine. Tell me what you know.
Okay. So if I have to be honest and congruent, I cannot know anything per se. But then that's a contradiction.
Good. Okay, if you can't know anything, so you see, that's the proof of the Christian God. Without him, you can know nothing.
But why is that the proof of the Christian God? Because
Why?
God revealed himself to people who are fallible, who can make
Because
mistakes.
God revealed that when you deny him, when you deny the God of the Bible, either by outright denial or non-acceptance, your worldview is turned to utter mumbo jumbo foolishness.
Okay.
And your worldview has just been reduced to mumbo jumbo meaningless.
Okay. So, but how do you know God said that and not someone who's
How do I
clever
know
made it
it?
up?
How do I know that? Because God revealed it. And the denial of such leads to absurdity. You ever heard of a reductio ad absurdum?
Yes.
Okay, good. Now let me. How do you know everything you've been saying here this afternoon?
Yes.
Presupposed causality, laws of nature, reliability of cognition, laws of logic, reliability of sense perception. How do you know any of those?
Well,
because I want to apply the same standard that you're applying to the word of God. Because you see, if you're inconsistent, then your objection is just simply an irrational, arbitrary stance because you're running from Jesus Christ.
Okay.
Now, how do you know that any of those brute facts exist?
Well,
and if you say that you don't know it, then you need to be quiet and stop saying anything, because any knowledge statements or truth claims are going to be predicated on those brute facts that you don't know. You see, you want to have a standard for the Bible. Oh, how do you know? How do you know it's from God? And I say, well, because God has revealed it. Where did he reveal it? In the Bible. You say, well, that's circular. But you see, you're operating from a circular basis yourself that you don't reject.
but did I not say that earlier, that both of us are doing this?
Yeah, but you see,
so the only rejection you had was, how do you know what I'm saying is not true, though? That's the only difference.
Well, unfortunately, see, the problem in that analysis is I'm speaking from that which is the ground of all being that provides for metaphysical intelligibility. When you reject that, you're going to have to account that your circular reasoning is the ultimate authority. What's your ultimate authority?
But
your deistic God? Is your deistic God the ultimate authority?
Yes.
Did he reveal that to you?
Through nature, through logic.
No, sir. No, sir. You don't know that there's revelation in nature. How do you know that?
Because nature has laws.
Wait a minute. What laws, sir?
Okay, so I'll get to it.
What laws?
I never got the law. The physical laws of nature
Oh,
are
okay,
immutable.
Good. Tell me how you know there are laws of nature.
So when you observe the laws of nature, like for example, if you and I both jump off a cliff
Sir,
anywhere,
do
hold on,
laws of
wait.
nature have to exist first before there can be sense perception?
I don't know.
Think about it.
No, I don't.
Do the laws of nature have to pre-exist sense perception in order to assert, therefore, laws of nature?
But does
Are
it
you
matter?
are you not presupposing the laws of nature when you invoke eyesight in order to justify laws of nature?
No, I'm observing movement in
You're not
nature.
understanding. When you say observation of X,
Right,
therefore
so
laws of nature, is that your position?
the laws of nature have to exist. So
Sir, can you respond to my question? Are you
I
saying
know what you're saying. I know what you're saying.
you observe X, therefore laws of nature? Is that your position?
No.
Oh, what do you observe, sir?
Okay, so what's happening? You're asking me.
Oh, so you don't use observation to justify laws of nature. Okay, how are you going to justify laws of nature?
No, I do use no. What are you saying, man? Hold on for a second.
What are you appealing to
Okay,
justify
let me just
the laws of
explain my
nature?
position, and then you can tear it apart. How's
It's
this?
real simple.
No. I'm going to
How
take.
do you justify that nature operates according to some laws?
Okay, by observation and repetitive.
Excellent. Now we're getting somewhere.
Okay.
Does observation, insofar as its meaning, does it entail within its meaning that there are laws of nature?
Observation does.
Could you see things?
Yes.
If there were not laws of nature?
Could I visually see something without the laws of nature? No.
So when you invoke sight and observation, you're presupposing that there are laws of nature in order to say, therefore, laws of nature.
What laws of nature are, I'm not actually speaking of actual laws that are
Sir,
written
does
somewhere.
observation entail within its meaning that laws of nature exist? Is eyesight a set of laws of nature?
No, it's
Oh,
what
it's not. So eyesight doesn't involve laws of
No, it does.
the motion of, oh, it does. Okay,
The
so
laws of
eyesight
nature emerge.
eyesight is a set. Is eyesight a set of laws of nature?
Is eyesight of law of nature?
Is
Now stop
eyesight
being
a
retarded.
set? Is eyesight a set of laws of nature?
I think eyesight comes from the law of nature.
Okay, good. So when you so there has to be laws of nature before you can invoke the intelligibility of eyesight. So you're asserting laws of nature, therefore laws of nature.
So in other words, there's nothing to observe the laws of nature outside.
Sir,
of
I'm
that.
waiting for you to account in a non-circular fashion.
No, I
that there are laws of
just told
nature.
you that there's nothing that can go outside of the laws of nature to account it other than God, let's say.
Sir, did your God reveal to you that there are laws of nature?
Now, you didn't even let me explain how he revealed himself in this view.
Sir, did your God?
Because let me ask you this question:
Did your God reveal to you that there are
All
laws
right,
of nature?
CJ, you've been kicking my ass all day. Now let me do something here. You use logic and reasoning to even understand the revelation of God, and you've just told me earlier today that you can't know anything like that. You're saying reason and all these other things are imagination. Yet in your case, because you're able to see that the word of God is reasonable or logical or even infallible. How do you do that with your faculties?
It's very simple. It's because God has ordained that I don't.
So
it's
okay.
Hold on. Wait a minute. I'm not done yet. You ask me, how do I do that? I do that because God has ordained that the mind of man made in the image of God, insofar as it's not brain damaged, man's mind and cognition automatically, without question, accepts the principle of causality and laws of nature, period. Now, do you have a justification that there are laws of nature?
I don't know, man. This is so funny. This is great. I love it. I love being destroyed like this, but I don't even know if I'm being destroyed. That's the funny part.
No, what I've just showed you that without the God of the Bible, I just showed you that without the God of the Bible, you can prove nothing.
Okay, but you can't even prove the God of the Bible yourself.
Okay, can you prove that?
Can you prove the God of the Bible?
I just did. The proof
No,
of
you
the God,
didn't.
the proof
You
of the
did
God of
not.
the Bible.
You
the
did not prove anything to me.
Okay, good. Okay, good. So proof and verification requires prerequisites, does it not?
You're just telling me.
Julius, listen to me. When you say I didn't prove it,
yeah,
that means that the concept of proof is viable in your worldview, correct?
You have to show me it.
Julius, you're not focusing. When you say that I did not prove it, you're advancing that the concept of proof and verification is viable.
Okay.
Is the concept of proof and verification in your worldview viable in any instance?
It has to work, right? That's what you're saying.
Is the concept of proof a metaphysically viable concept? Can anything be proven?
I believe it can.
Okay, good. How does your worldview provide for the preconditions and prerequisites of proof and verification? What has to be true as a prerequisite? Must there be causality in order to prove something?
Yes.
Okay, is there causality, sir?
Are things caused? Yes, I believe so.
Okay, I didn't ask you if you believed it. Is it the
well,
case?
there are obviously there's causes.
Good. Okay, good. Can you give me a justification that there's causality in order to provide for the prerequisites of proof?
Well, I could look at motion.
Sir, observation, sight is a set of causality. That's circulars. All you're simply saying is causality, therefore causality.
But is it not that you're even reception?
Are you appealing to eyesight to justify causality?
That's the only way I could explain it.
Okay, good. Is that circular? Is sight a set of causal connections?
It observes causal connections.
Sir,
I don't even think.
Is sight a set
All
of
right.
causal connections?
Man, I don't even know how to explain this shit to you, buddy.
It's a very simple question. You see, even a child could answer this.
No, clearly not.
Is eyesight a set of causal connections?
Okay. So does eyesight come from other causes, is what you're saying?
No. Is eyesight a set of causal connections?
What do you mean by set?
As opposed to, well, let's say we have the emittance of photons from a source. It travels through space. It passes through your cornea, your lens. It hits your retina. It triggers an electrical discharge and signal goes up your optic nerve where it is neurologically processed. Is that a set of causal connections?
I just said it was. I said
good.
So
good. So when you invoke sight as a justification for causal connections, sight is a label of causal connections. So you're simply saying causal connections, therefore causal connections.
So causal connections allow me to observe causal connections.
Causal connections, therefore causal connections.
Right. So I'm arguing that I can see things that are causing. Okay.
Is that a valid form of reasoning? Asserting the conclusion in your premise?
That would be circular reasoning, right?
Yeah. Do you accept circular reasoning?
I don't know any other way to explain how I could observe.
So in other words, there is no way for you to account for causality.
Unless I evoke God.
Well, what God?
Well, that's the thing. The only difference you and I have is which God.
No, sir. It's not the question. The question is not what. How do you know that this brute fact exists?
I don't know.
Then why are you asserting it?
Because it's my belief.
So we see that's another problem. First of all, you're just simply saying it's the product of your imagination. But then you say just like yours. Is that the product of your imagination as well? When you say that what I'm saying is the product of my imagination?
If I have to stick with what you've analyzed, I'm saying I have to say yes.
So my stipulation that the God of the Bible exists in virtue of his natural and special revelation, is that simply and only the product of my imagination?
It could be the problem of imagination.
I didn't ask you if it could be. I said, is it?
No, I'm saying it could or cannot be. I don't know.
Oh, okay. Well, here's the problem, because now you just contradicted yourself, because less than a minute ago, you stated that my stipulation of the existence of the Christian God was only the product of my imagination. Now you're saying you don't know.
I'm not saying your imagination is false.
You see, this is the problem when you reject the revelation of the Christian God.
No, it's not the problem.
You're contradicting yourself.
No. See, here's the thing.
2 minutes ago, Julius, listen, I'm starting to get irritated with you, because 2 minutes ago, you stated that my stipulation of the revelation of the Christian God was only the product of my imagination, just like yours was. But then when I asked you if my stipulation was only the product of my imagination, what did you say? You said, I don't know.
Okay, so only
so which is it? So which is it, Julius? Do you know or do you not know whether my stipulation is the product of my imagination?
What I mean to say is, do I know or not know if it's true or false? But it is from your imagination.
You're contradicting yourself left and right.
No, I'm not. Because what I mean to say
Julius, I have a good memory for these things. You just asserted 2 minutes ago.
I know what I
just like your God is the product of your imagination, that my stipulation is just as the product of my imagination as yours is. Did you say that?
Going by the definition, when you gave me my imagination,
sir, did you say that?
Yeah, I said it.
Good. Now, did a minute and a half later, did you say, when I said to you, is my stipulation of the existence and the revelation of the Christian God, is it only the product of my imagination? And what did you say? You said, I don't know.
Okay, so I understand what happened in this conversation. Okay.
Yeah, what happened was you contradicted yourself.
Yeah, but this whole thing is a clusterfuck. Let me explain.
Yeah, your position is a clusterfuck.
No, because even the definitions you give me that I'm imagining things, it's everything from my experience is my imagination. Why wouldn't this apply to you? Why are you exempt to we're going with my definition of knowledge as imagination. Why are you exempt from this?
Why? Because everything you say is your product of your imagination.
Okay. And yours is not. So you're exempt to the same definitions
that is correct. My stipulation that the God of the Bible exists, and I know.
Forget the God of the Bible. I'm talking about you.
I'm answering you, sir.
No.
Okay.
Forget the God of the Bible. I'm
Sir,
saying you.
well, sir, if you want, we can make a wooden replica of me. You can stick your hand up the back and do a ventriloquist act, or you're going to let me answer for myself.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Now, my stipulation is that the God of the Bible exists, and I know this in virtue of his revelatory acts, both in natural revelation and special revelation. Okay. That's how I know that it's not the product of my imagination, because God has made me to know this.
Okay. So how do you know this revelation is true? How's that?
Because he revealed it.
Right.
And in addition to, I know it is true because he is the ultimate and final authority, and without that, you can't know anything.
All right. So you say God in Revelation claims
Now,
God revealed it.
do you dispute? I want to ask you a very simple question. Do you dispute that you can know something ultimately and independently of the creative acts of the Christian God?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Tell me how you can know something where there's a justificatory path. Remember, we're using the standard definition of knowledge this time.
Okay.
Tell me something you know where it's a belief that's true, it's veridical, and there's a justificatory path. Path.
I know that you could be either right or wrong. 100%. I know you could be either right or wrong, or I could be either wrong.
How do you know that?
Because those are the possibilities.
How do you know what's possible?
Because that's what it is. That's what possibility means.
No, sir. How do you know what the realm of possibility is?
Well, there's these things that happen in the. Okay, how do I know? How do you? I just wonder.
Doesn't the ground of all being, isn't it the basis of possibility and impossibility? Right? Could you?
Oh yes, no, I agree with that. Yeah,
good.
100%.
So would you be able to actually stipulate, in a way that could be accounted for, of what is possible or not possible without knowing what the ground of all being is?
No, there you go. I agree with you.
Good. What's the ground?
God.
What? Good. What's okay? So when you say something is possible, tell me, what is the ground of all being that will provide you with the metaphysical support of what is possible? What is it?
Okay. So we agree it's God. You have a different God.
No, sir. We don't. You and I don't agree. Okay.
Yes, we believe in God, but we have different gods.
Sir. Your God, from my worldview, your God doesn't exist.
Okay.
Now, how do you know something, sir? What is the ground of all being that will provide the foundation, not only for you to know something, but in order for you to stipulate and know that something is possible? What is the ground of all being so you can stipulate what is possible?
Well, in my worldview, God.
Okay,
right. Reason.
Okay, how do you know that?
I only know what I experience, which you'll say, how do I know that? I mean,
how do you know that the God you are imagining constructed a world where there's causality, laws of nature, basic reliability of reason, sense perception, laws of logic? How do you know that your God instituted those brute facts?
Because I'm in existence.
Sir, that doesn't okay, listen. Okay, listen, sir, stipulating that there are particulars in a world of where the external reality is real does not justify the reliability of cognition. It doesn't justify causality. It doesn't justify laws of nature. You're going to have to justify all of these brute facts from within your deism. How do you know that God created these brute facts? Merely saying I exist does not establish the laws of logic. So it doesn't establish causality.
All right. So I believe. I say here's where I think there's a difference here. So in your worldview, your God told you how it was done.
Sir, I'm still waiting. In your worldview, how do you know that your God implemented these brute facts?
It's a belief.
So so it's just the product of your imagination. So you don't know it.
So
you don't know it.
Okay, the product of my imagination is a belief.
So you don't know it.
So I don't know for sure. Doesn't mean I don't know it at all.
Okay.
See, that's another thing. I don't know 100%, but it's a
Okay,
belief, 50-50
Sir,
almost.
sir, no, but I'm not asking you the degrees of psychological competence. I'm asking, do you know anything at all?
Again, this is another question. This is so interesting.
You see, you don't know anything. In your rejection of the Christian God, as the
Right, I
Bible has
know.
said,
No,
that
it's true.
in Christ Jesus reside all the treasures of knowledge and wisdom. Deny Jesus Christ, and you're going to flail around like a fish out of water, not being able to account for knowledge or anything else, which you have done here today.
Okay. So, all right. I know that's your typical pitch there. I've heard it already.
It's not, no, sir, it's not a pitch. If I say to you, without the Christian God, you can prove nothing, you can just simply, knock that out of the park and show me how you can know something or prove something. What would that be? You see, we've already been down this path a couple of times.
We have been.
And you've admitted that you don't know anything. All you're just simply giving me is your imagination.
But if I don't know anything, then I might not even know that I'm right. You see what I'm trying to say? So, like, see, this is the thing. You're tearing me down, right? Not personally, but you're tearing my arguments down, and I'm saying I don't even know. But that doesn't.
I'm showing you in principle.
Yeah. So
given your worldview, you can't know anything. Now, I certainly believe that you can and do know some things because you live in the world that Jesus Christ constructed.
Okay, but even if it wasn't Jesus Christ, it's still a world.
That's not a possibility, sir.
How do you know it's not a possibility? Because the book that
I'll tell you why.
Okay.
It's because possibilities are constrained by the ground of all being, and the ground of all being, God has revealed such. Now, if you ask me how I know it, I just told you how I know it.
By reading this revelation.
That's correct. That is what God has ordained. God has ordained that his special revelation that he gave to Adam and Eve, Noah, Moses, the Old Testament prophets, Jesus Christ and his apostles, part of which was oral and a lot of which is recorded and written down. God has ordained that the written word of the Bible is his special revelation. Now, you can either take it or you leave it, but there's going to be philosophical ramifications and epistemic catastrophe for you when you reject the revelation of the Christian God. Because the moment you make any assertion, I don't care what it is, that assertion will either be the ground of all being or it will be a contingency from the ground of all being. And I'm going to ask you, on what basis do you assert that? But so far today, sir, all you simply say is, I imagine this, I imagine that.
I understand. No, listen, you are amazing at this. I love it. I love this whole thing. And I will find out a way to answer your questions. That's what this is all about.
No, you won't find a way.
I will.
There is no way out of it, sir.
There's no way at all that unless it's Jesus Christ.
Okay, listen, sir. To quote somebody who is a far greater giant at philosophy and theology than myself, it's true due to the impossibility of the contrary.
And who is that? Is that
that's Cornelius Van Til.
He sounds ancient.
Due to the impossibility of the contrary. Sir.
Well, I think we've been talking for a long time. Everyone heard me getting.
All right, listen. Even though we vigorously disagreed, I want to thank you for the conversation.
I love it. I love it.
And I want to give you an A++ for your conduct, your demeanor. I rarely encounter somebody such as yourself that doesn't resort to trolling or obstructionism, and you haven't done any of that. So I salute you.
Listen, I think it was phenomenal. I mean, I am sitting here totally what's the word? Dumbstruck?
Dumbfounded?
I'm dumbfounded because
Dumb fuck.
Here's what it is. I'm a dumb fuck. I know. What I love about it is because I mean, for all I know, you're an atheist and you're just pretending to be Christian, or maybe you're a Christian. But I'm saying the point is,
he's a Satanist.
But whatever he is, I've watched Dawkins and Lennox debate, and I think they're both wonderfully spoken. I love this because you see, I'm looking for truth, and I don't know if we'll ever get to it, but to sit here and not be able to, because I've dealt with people on Twitter, like morons who are like totally stupid, emotionally rhetoric and all. But when I deal with someone like this, I'm like, wow, this is amazing that I'm getting I don't even know what the hell I'm saying, and that's so wonderful to know, because now I know I'm even more ignorant than I thought I was. So that's even more beautiful. But I know what I want to learn is how to, because here's the thing, even if I were to be able to answer the questions, how do we still know they're true You know, that's the thing. So even if I was successful,
I already explained to you.
I know the
The-
Jesus
the-
Christ, the Bible. I know.
No, the only way that you can know that something is true is through an omnipotent, omniscient, always truth revealing creator who has stepped into human history and given special revelation. It's
Okay,
that simple.
I
And if
understand
you
that.
if you deny those parameters, you're not going to know anything.
It
I
doesn't have
see-
to be
I
a
see.
creator.
It doesn't have to. All right, here's my question. All right, so I just wanted to explain why I'm a deist, why I don't believe in the revelation of, because I was raised Roman Catholic. My whole family.
I was raised Catholic too.
Yeah, and so when I look at the problem of evil and things like this, but my deism is not the deism which God is separated. That was my first view. Like that God made the world. He's a clockmaker. Disappeared. I almost take the pantheist that God is literally everything. There's no other way, you know, in that regard.
You're a wait a minute. You're a pantheist?
Well, it's a panendeism. I forgot the term. It's where God is the universe and without the universe. He's all things, literally all things. What other substrate could be made without God? Nothing. How did God make anything without himself? Or that actually
None
is,
greater.
Well,
you know what I'm saying? Like
well,
God is everything.
Pantheism is God is all is one, all is God.
Yes, yes.
Are you? So you're a pantheist?
I think that's the best
Oh,
definition.
okay, because that's not deism. Deism maintains there's a creator-creation distinction.
Yeah, so
Pantheism does not.
Darth, I think what he's actually talking about is called panentheism. You know what that is?
panendeism. Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
because
well, I'm familiar with that, but that's
Yeah,
not.
There is a creator-creation distinction, but the creation is sustained by God's divine energies. It's that God is in the universe in so much as it contains his divine energies, but there's still a creator-creation distinction.
yeah, there's so many different. I mean, even this I don't even stances. Because I keep evolving into saying, okay, well, because you know, if this was all God, then evil wouldn't matter because God's harming himself, but he can't be harmed. Or if God's an author, he wrote a book. Like you're an author, you write a story. Your characters, some are killed off, some win, some. There's no emotional attachment to it. There's no, you know, because how does an omnipotent being allow evil to exist, knowing the future? Well, then he must not know the future, but that doesn't make he's not omnipotent because the future doesn't actually exist. The only thing that exists is the now. So that, I mean, I've had so many different thoughts in my mind what I believe in, but I'm more towards the end that God is all things literally, including all evil. And these are human constructs.
Well, that would be even you would be even in a worse epistemic situation than you were in deism if you adopted that view.
Well, probably. I wouldn't listen. I wouldn't,
because if God is all and all is one, then all such distinctions are illusory.
Yes, and that's non-dualism.
No. All distinctions. If God is all and all is one, then all distinctions are an illusion.
Right, up down is an illusion, and dualism.
Any distinction is an illusion.
Yep.
Therefore, anything that you say that makes distinctions is vacuous.
Yeah.
Because all is one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's even worse position than deism.
I know. Listen, that's why.
See, the reason why you have these positions is because you do not want to bow the knee to Jesus Christ.
Yes, I know.
That's called a suppression of the truth and unrighteousness.
The only thing, see, the reason why I don't believe in Catholicism anymore.
I didn't say Catholicism.
Or Christianity. I know Catholicism's even worse, the cult of things. I mean, my problem is the things God did in the Old Testament, let's say, throwing boils on Job, to prove to Satan that he is going to love him no matter what. If I did such a thing to my child, you would think I'm a psychopath.
You just violated the creator-creation distinction. That's a category error.
Well, yes, I understand. You're going to say, well, God, because he's the author of life, he can do anything he wants, right? That's the thing. I know. I've heard
that. When you use that analogy, you've committed a category error.
Right. Well, I'm just saying, like, yeah, okay, it's a category.
That's a faulty form of reasoning. Okay. It is simply imagining God as one more entity in existence who just has superpowers. That's a category error.
I see what you're saying. So you cannot compare my actions to that, which is the ultimate. Okay,
yeah, and have you read Job?
No, I haven't. So I'd have
to well, read Job and find out. Read through Job and then read what God's responses are to Job.
I know that he gave him more in the end.
And what was after Job began to question God's permission of his affliction, when Job began to question God, what was after God spoke back to Job and answered Job? What was Job's final response? He said, I repent in dust and ashes. In other words, he took back his critique of God because it was based upon faulty imaginative thinking, just like your imaginative thinking about the Bible. You're not in a position when you do not start with the God of the Bible. You're not in a position to critique, judge, or evaluate the Bible.
But could it be not the God of the Bible and still God, the same God?
No, sir. You either have to accept the revelation of the Christian God, or you're going to have to sit there and be quiet, because you can't offer another worldview that is not the worldview you're speaking from.
So how do the atheists debate you then, is my question.
What they generally do is they troll, they obfuscate, they obstruct.
False.
You're one of the rare individuals that I've encountered that has not employed those adolescent tactics.
Well, I'm not going to attack you personally. I'm not going to troll because I'm not. I'm
No,
willing
but you
to
haven't.
be wrong.
But you didn't even try obstructing the conversation in a covert way. I mean, you were evasive with certain responses, but
well, my evasiveness is, like I said, my brain is so quickly like hyper vigilant. When do you see how first of all, I think out loud. I think incomplete.
Yeah, I'm trying to commend you here. I'm just saying, other than our strong disagreements, you conducted yourself with great character.
I appreciate that. Yeah. Well, I'm trying to learn too. I mean, I people have said you're the final boss, so I thought it was funny. And
I think that's a bit of an overstatement.
Either way.
It is. It's hyperbole. It's funny.
God is really.
And next time, Jules, you'll have more tools at your disposal.
That's right.
And there's people in here with much greater powers of reasoning than Didi.
Either way.
All right.
How do they know that they have more power? How do they know it? Interesting.
Well, they go beyond just imagining it.
Without Jesus, how do they know?
Yeah, did you hear that, Julius?
What's that?
They go beyond imagining it.
Okay. Well,
You
again,
can reject the concept of knowledge and only deal with justification.
I mean, how would someone in my defeat his position? Is it even possible to defeat his position?
To quote a giant that is much greater than myself, repent or perish.
Here's the thing: when I watch like William Lane Craig versus someone, he gets destroyed. But I feel like that's why.
Whoa! Craig gets destroyed by whom?
Well, I've seen
everyone.
Because he makes these. Because here's
the thing about. Could you provide me a link to that with the video you're considering?
I think Lawrence Krauss destroyed him.
Are you not aware that William Lane Craig has exposed Krauss as absolutely lying to win a debate?
No.
You haven't heard of that?
No, I haven't.
No.
I don't
think it's true.
Craig refers to the Borg-Guth-Vilenkin theorem. Krauss accused Craig of not understanding and misrepresenting the Borg-Guth-Vilenkin theorem, and he posted in the debate with Craig an email from Alexander Vilenkin. But Craig noticed that there was an ellipsis in the email, and he said, "What did you leave out?" And Krauss said, "Oh, it was just technical. It would have just confused people." And Craig said, "Well, I don't know about that. I'd like to see that." And Krauss was adamant that it was technical. Well, William Lane Craig actually secured the actual email. When we found out what the missing piece was, it wasn't technical, and it changed the whole meaning of the email, the part that he deleted. So Krauss deliberately excised this passage in order to make the email look like it said something different. So Krauss was proven to be lying.
I wouldn't take Darth's word for it.
I mean, like the thing is, okay, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
A lot of people point to the Sean Carroll debate as a as an example
I've
of.
I've seen a few. Like I like Lennox and Dawkins debate in Oxford. The reason why I like Lennox is a mathematician, and I think math does do a lot to prove things technically. But what argument I like is that the laws of physics that Lenin brings up, that it's faith that we believe they'll always act the same. So is it possible that a being like God intervened in parts of history? And of course, Dawkins brings up evolution. Well, how do and Lennox says, well, why couldn't he inject more information into evolution? Which is interesting. Anyway, no, I think this was phenomenal. I really appreciate, first of all, I appreciate the invite coming here, because I knew coming here it was going to be an experience in itself. So very humbling experience, by the way. And yeah, people say I'm nice, but I'm really not, depending on my mood. But no, when I am facing an opponent that I conceive or perceive to be way more learned than myself, such as this man here, I have to just shut my mouth and be humble, and not going to double down when I'm wrong. That's not my nature. I hope not. And I want to learn the truth. So my thing is the truth. So I put my ego aside. That's why I won't resort to name calling and things like that, because that just means you have no argument. So I'd rather be destroyed and humiliated.
Yeah, but your worldview doesn't have a basis for argumentation.
I mean, the basis, right, without God, I understand your point. I would have to find a way to argue that. How, from your position? The only question I have is, how do you know that's the word of God, other than the book saying it's the word of God? That's the only problem I have with that.
Yeah, it's to the impossibility of the contrary.
So, and yours have to be because
either we have reason which is in subjugation to the mind of God as he has revealed it, or we'll be speaking from autonomous reasoning, and autonomous reasoning leads to contradiction and incoherence.
I mean, Matt Slick. You know who Matt Slick is?
Yes, I know that. Yes.
Yeah, so that one, that guy also, I was interested in his arguments with logic. And then someone brought up the superposition of 1 and 0, quantum whatever, and he was like, well, there's in nature there's ones and zeros, could be superposition, because he was bringing up the laws of non-contradiction, Matt Slick, and he was talking about is morality subjective, and is it raping a baby ever right, stuff like that. That was a debate we had on Twitter, myself and others. So I don't know, it's interesting. I mean, it's very deep stuff. I mean, you're obviously very learned with this, but anyway, so all right, well, I'm gonna eat my breakfast. I'll probably be back in a little bit. I actually didn't even eat my food my wife got me because I was involved in this. I'll be back in a little bit. I do appreciate the conversation, and I'm looking forward to more of these.
Is it peaches?
What's that? Hello?
Enjoy your food.
All right, thank you. Yeah. All right, guys. I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, enjoy your breakfast. We'll see you later, buddy.
Bye-bye.
Darth Dawkins, who has been your toughest match in Discord?
Who?
Yeah.
I can't think of anybody.
Nobody came close, right?
Come on, Didi, just accept it and tell him.
Jack. Extract.
Probably tasteless opinion.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, man. I mean, I'm glad you're honest.
Tasteless memes in chat, guys.
Now, tasteless, I hope you save that recording of that statement.
Tasteless is the
Sorry, I had to get on mic. Did you say tasteless?
Yes.
Brilliant.
tasteless is the biggest mischaracter.
Yeah, I'm like the Jordan Peterson of the fucking server.
Yeah, you like everyone calls you a troll, but you're actually the troll at all. The less troll.
You like it well for me.
It's interesting because you were talking with Julius about him imagining things, but Tasteless actually thinks that reality is defined by what you are aware of.
Wouldn't that be your reality though? Anyway. Or is reality what you perceive, or is it the absolute truth of what is happening?
The latter.
Is it your imagination or something?
Look,